On this edition of Somerville Neighborhood News, ballot question 5 asks Somerville voters to approve excluding $131 million in debt associated with the construction of a new high school. We'll take an in-depth look at the project and what it means to voters. And bringing solar panels to a roof near you. All that and more tonight on Somerville Neighborhood News. Hello and welcome to Somerville Neighborhood News. I'm Melanie Morris. Today's Tuesday, October 25th, 2016. When Somerville voters head to the polls, they will find ballot question 5. It reads, shall the city of Somerville be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2.5, so-called the amounts required to pay for the bonds issued in order to design, engineer, construct, and equip the new Somerville High School? Tonight, we're going to take a look at how this question came about and just what it means to residents and taxpayers. Last November, Somerville Neighborhood News reported on one of the many community forums held to inform and get feedback from the public on the process being undertaken to build the new Somerville High School and the reasons why the time has come to address the aging infrastructure. Here's that report from our Brendan Donahue.
Somerville High School was built in the 19th century and can't keep up with the city's 21st century education needs. A recent community forum updated residents on plans to change that.
We've been waiting 143 years for a state-of-the-art school to be rebuilt and reconstructed. So we want to make sure that we put into the building everything that we can that the city can afford, that is reasonable, that addresses the needs of education for the next 143 years.
The forum, led by former Somerville Superintendent of Schools and current chair of the Somerville High School Building Committee, Tony Pirantazzi, began with a review of the process to date.
So when we talk about where the schedule, we want to first kind of touch base on where we've been. Back in January of 2014, the city submitted a statement of interest to the MSBA. That statement, the MSBA reviews it, and this project was selected to be included in the MSBA program.
MSBA stands for Massachusetts School Building Authority, the state government group that helps local communities build affordable, efficient, and sustainable public schools. Being selected by MSBA means Somerville gets a base reimbursement of almost 72% of costs, with a maximum of 80% of costs being reimbursed.
Now we are in Module 3, which is the feasibility study. This module requires that the city go through due diligence in reviewing this site, this building, as well as other sites as they've talked about, to figure out what is the best option for the city.
Right now, we are focused on Somerville High School as an educational institution. But it's possible that as we develop this spring and down the road into the actual design phase, that we add other things to the structure. One of the great needs that I've already mentioned is parking. And the second great need that Alex referenced is play space, field space, and open space.
With land at a premium in the city, the question of where to put a new school is central. Possible locations include Trum Field and the Department of Public Works, Foss Park, and the current location on Highland Ave. However, the use of public park space for a school would require the setting aside of new land for public use.
And so what we don't want to do is have communities pitting school use versus open space use, right? These should be cohabitable and important components of any healthy community.
At the end of the presentation, residents were given a chance to ask questions. Many residents had concerns about ease of public transportation access for students.
Let me address that specifically, if I may. The question or the statement is, transportation for students is missing. Well, transportation other than traffic hasn't been discussed here. We're looking at parking for staff, the high school as a community center.
At the end of this feasibility study in February, a preliminary design program and a preferred schematic report will be submitted to the MSBA. Construction is planned to begin in the summer of 2018 with a finished high school by the fall of 2021. For Somerville Neighborhood News, I'm Brendan Donahue.
In addition to the Trump Field area, the committee considered sites throughout Somerville during the feasibility phase. The lack of available open space in the city brought the discussion back to the current site on the Hill. Former Superintendent Tony Parentozzi and architect Alex Pitkin discussed that decision and more on Greater Somerville with Joe Lynch last April.
From an analysis of 22 possible sites, it came down basically to the DPW building and Trump Field and the current site. And the analysis of the Trump Field would really pose significant problems. In no order, the DPW building would have to be demolished and replaced somewhere in the city. There would probably have to be some kind of an environmental inspection and cleanup. The field could not be used for the high school unless the city found qualitatively and quantitatively at least as good a field somewhere else or built one.
To replace
Trump Field.
Yep.
And Trump Field has some historical special feelings in the city, particularly after its latest renovation. I mean, it's been there for a long, long time.
Then you whittle this down. So
Yep.
between the architectural firm, the committee, and public input, you've kind of whittled this down to an option. And the option says, considering everything we talked about using open space in the city, what limited open space
Right.
we have, we're going to try to incorporate on Central Hill, saving some historic part of this building, but we're going to build new around it.
Well, the high school sits right across the very top of Central Hill. And the main entry of the high school with the curved entry and the granite steps was built in 1895. That's the main section of the front of that building. It is surrounded actually by buildings to its left, behind it, and to its right that were built in 1929. The building, interestingly enough, had little corner additions in 1914. And then, of course, the War Memorial Gymnasium, which is now being used as the library, was part of that 1929 addition. So, you know, historically, it's kind of interesting. Massive additions to the high school in 1929. And, of course, if they had delayed a little bit, the Great Depression would have occurred.
There you go. Those additions will probably still be in planning today.
They possibly could. And then a couple of small additions in 1988. Another elevator was added when the Career Vocational Technical Education Wing was moved over from East Somerville, and the health center, a very small section in 2006, was opened. So that's the history of the building. It's the 1929, 1895 additions really have never received a major, thorough renovation. It could be the oldest unrenovated secondary school that we know of.
When we start talking about building a new high school, it's something that people, you know, I think a lot of people can't fathom, that we
Right.
haven't really moved anything from
Nope.
that site in well over 100 years.
The most interesting thing about what you just said was that we now have a very large high school that has nothing to do with education. It had to do with building additions on it. And this process that we're going through with the MSBA and under the guidance of SMMA is really starting with the foundational concept of what's an education in the 21st century. And we have to build a building that supports that education.
This is not a case of where, you know, the mayor or the board of aldermen or the school committee or the former superintendent took it upon themselves to say, we're going to build a brand new high school. This is something that is being said by another authority. The school accreditation system is saying, you need to do this. Either completely renovate what you have now or go build yourselves a new one. That's basically what they're saying. Is it needs to be upgraded.
The accreditation report basically stated that Somerville High School, as it currently exists, cannot support 21st century education for the next 50 or 60 or 70. And that's really
I'll
what it's
paraphrase it. They're sending the warning shot. Did we want to talk about it in terms of the alternative? Because I think that's what people are going to see on your website.
I think when you look on our website and you go to Alternative 4B, which is the preferred option voted by the building committee on April 11th, what you will see is the 1895 building standing alone, with the 1929 sections of the building around it removed. And the high school really built to the east, or if you're standing on Highland Avenue, to the right of the property, surrounding both the War Memorial front of the old gymnasium, the current library, and the field house. We're retaining the field house, retaining the front of the War Memorial, and possibly more, that is an engineering question, and retaining the original 1895 front of that building with the 1914 corners still attached. So what's being created is an open space. Now, when you go over the cusp of the hill, there would be an athletic field behind the 1895 building, and we are proposing to put a parking structure beneath that.
And that, you know, for the folks who are looking hopefully at this slide at home, what they are looking at is the School Street entrance to that back parking lot. That's what you're talking about, where the athletic field and the parking would be. So it kind of actually comes behind City Hall and then goes behind the old 1895 entrance to the existing high school. Talk about the advantages of that, because I see on the slide there, on the depiction, you have a little bit of green roof area.
Correct, and this is all obviously to be resolved with our next level of design effort, but the thinking here was that we would think of the site as a master plan, not just simply a high school, not just simply City Hall or the main branch of the library. How do we think of this as a composition for all these many different people, citizens of the city, that are going to be coming using the Central Hill? And so the field on top of the parking is something that we had familiarity with, and was one of the things that we also touted. We've done one at WPI and also two down at Providence College. Very rare experience actually in our Commonwealth, but the idea of having a turf top field on top of structured parking is a complicated endeavor, but it really speaks to the question of the fact that Somerville doesn't have available open space.
And it is also part, if I can just interject there, it's also part of the initiative that you're trying to do this as a green initiative.
Yes, yep. Yeah, we do want to limit parking, obviously with the Gilman Square station coming. You know, it's the right amount of parking. We also, one of the ideas in the master plan was to try to limit parking at the front of the site, right? We want to kind of restore that idea that that historic green space shouldn't be violated by cars to as little extent as possible.
The preferred design was then submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Association, and the project was accepted, making Somerville eligible for a significant reimbursement on the construction of a new high school. Somerville's contribution was estimated at around $131 million. Raising that amount of money would require approval by the voters of the city. On July 6th of this year, Mayor Curtatone went before the Board of Aldermen to request the debt exclusion question be placed on the ballot. Mayor Curtatone sat down with us recently to explain what a debt exclusion is and how it differs from other funding mechanisms.
We have many, many capital needs that the community is expecting, has been waiting for, and hopes and desires that we have, and we want to fulfill those obligations. So if we were to borrow with the general borrowing authority, we would not have the ability to do all the things we want to do. So debt exclusion allows us to build a high school, pay that high school from a revenue stream specifically for that purpose, and then that revenue stream is extinguished when the project is paid for, which is 30 years out. But it gives us the authority to go above and beyond the debt levy to pay for the high school, and we'll have a better understanding of the cost as the design and plans mature to full design. And we've done a cost analysis on the full design and plans. And that'll be the amount we request that the Board of Aldermen authorize us to borrow. And then the state, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in particular, will approve us for the grant of the monies for the state side. The full cost of the project is projected somewhere north of, say, between 250 to 260 million, somewhere there. Again, as designs continue to evolve and mature, the architects and designers and engineers are still in the school building committee, are determined to continue to value engineer the project to make it the most economically and great but best design of the project. And we are eligible for approximately 78% reimbursement of a grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority. However, it's a reimbursement of eligible costs, and there's a very narrow definition of what the eligible costs are. And there are some things as a community we desire and hope to make part of this. So when you net it out, the 78% of the eligible costs, the School Building Authority is not paying for big field houses like we already have, which we'll renovate. They're only paying for certain elements. So at the end of the day, it's net out slightly over 50%, I think is the best way to put it. It's an important question, it's serious, and we welcome the public to visit the city's website to learn more information at www.somervillema.gov/high school, and you'll find the recent plans, the visuals, the renderings, and important financial information and analysis that has been done to help keep you informed on this important decision. But make no mistake, we need a new high school.
Once the ballot question was approved, several residents organized a Yes on 5 campaign. They have held informational meetings throughout the city, inviting residents to learn more about the project and to ask questions. There has not been an organized no campaign around Question 5. We invited 2 people from opposing sides of the question. Joe Beckman, a 20-year Somerville resident, community activist, and a no voter, and Tom Bent, a lifelong Somerville resident, member of the Somerville High School Building Committee, and a Yes on 5 organizer, to share their opinions.
I was part of the accreditation process when Tony Ciccarello was the headmaster. And we passed with flying colors as far as the educational aspect. The school did really well. But the one real major black mark on that was the condition of the school.
The debt exclusion question ignores a lot of important things. It ignores the need for designing a new kind of 21st century school, most important. But it also ignores the remarkable resources in the city of Somerville. And those resources are much more than just good teachers. They are good teachers, and it's much more than a school that needs to be changed profoundly physically, because it's a bumpy school.
Well, the building's about 126, 127 years old, and it's due. It's extremely tired. And it just does not lend well to the 21st educational needs today. That's probably one of the main reasons. Plus, there's just so much that needs to be done for repairs to the building just to get it up into to the current codes. Handicap accessibility, security. There's the heating system is antiquated. It's very inefficient. The list goes on.
And I think the real danger, frankly, is that it ignores the strengths of the city, that at the same time it exploits the gentrification that already exists. And it will accelerate that gentrification and isolate that population even further. I mean, it is not, if there were more exclusions on that tax, maybe. The problem is that the price is too high, basically, and they never examined those kinds of prices.
We're being very, very conservative. Plus, the cost of the high school right now is based on, we feel it's the high-end number. Even the Mass School Building Authority came back to us and said, your contingency seems kind of high here. And we said, you know what, we would rather be high at this point and now try to work it the other way. So when we had to come up with the estimate for the School Building Authority, it's very conceptual at that point. So now we're getting into the nitty-gritty and figuring out, okay, what's the HVAC system going to be, the electrical system, what kind of finishes can we afford? So the goal is to get that $256 million number for a new high school down.
The population who we need most is the population that school should be serving. not because of the kids, but because of their families. And the difficulty is that those are the families who are most vulnerable to the kind of tax increases that not just the school, but everything else is going to cost. And until we can actually get ahead of it, until we can get enough commercial development to then begin to lower some of the residential rates, we're just going to throw more people out.
We have a comprehensive high school, and that means that we have all the vocational programs part of our high school, which causes a lot of extra costs to do that. And vocational education today is just going through the roof, and I think people have finally realized it's a smart thing for communities to invest in. We're seeing, the enrollment on the vocational end of the high school soar.
To find all the information on the Somerville High School reconstruction project, visit somervillema.gov/high school. Then get out and vote. And voting in Somerville is easier than ever this year. Early voting has begun at City Hall. If you won't be available on November 8th or just want to skip the long lines, no worries. You can cast your ballot at the Aldermatic Chambers at City Hall today through Friday, November 4th. Early voting hours are available during the weekend of October 29th and 30th, as well as every weekday. All polling places will be open on Tuesday, November 8th from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. Visit somervillema.gov/elections for complete details and a voter information guide, or call the Elections Department at 311 for more information. Next up, solar panels are appearing on more and more roofs around the state, and Somerville has set a goal to get panels on 200 homes in the city. Solarize Somerville is a city-sponsored program that offers education as well as financial and logistical incentives for going solar. Our reporter Jenny Fang has the story.
The Solarize Somerville program came about when the city put out a survey in the beginning of 2016 asking residents if they would be interested in a residential solar program. The response we got was an overwhelming yes. So we immediately applied for the next round of Solarize Mass funding. And Solarize Mass is a program that is funded by the Department of Energy Resources and the Mass Clean Energy Center.
The goals of this program are to give residents affordable option for solar panel installation, to promote education on renewable energy, minimize time barriers.
Today we installed 20 modules on Mr. Stern's house. In Somerville we've just started installing. We've probably done 1 or 2 houses, but we have 50 sold that are coming up.
Mark Stern owns a single-family house in the Powder House Square neighborhood. He has been interested in installing solar panels on his roof for several years and was already working with a solar installer.
When I got an email from the city saying they were going to have a program, and I compared the two and found out that the Somerville program was much better financially for the customer.
A typical installation will come and do all the work that people don't see underneath the panels, the rails, the wiring, grounding, and pipe down to the basement, interconnect into their electrical system. Then usually the inspector wants to see the things that he won't be able to see underneath the panel, so he'll come and take a look and approve the work, and then we'll be scheduled to come back out and install the panels. So after the installation is complete, there'll be a final inspection, and once he signs a certificate of completion, he'll send it to the power company, who also will have to approve it and change their production meter to a net meter, which will turn backwards.
When I buy the system, I'm going to get approximately 1/3 of what my cost back in tax credits, and another almost 50% back in sales of solar certificates.
Generally, it's been about 5 kilowatt system sizes, so that's about 20 panels that we've been seeing in Somerville. You can think of it as about $1,000 a panel, but it really depends on the size of the system you're getting, the type of panel you're getting. Now, if somebody doesn't have that initial capital, whether they want to, or if they would like to own their system, they can do the Mass Solar Loan. And the Mass Solar Loan is a low interest loan. It's capped at 4.75%. You work with Solar Flare, our install partner, to apply for it. And if you're accepted, then they will give you a loan of anywhere from, I believe it's $5,000 or $3,000 to $35,000, and then on rare occasions they can go up to $60,000 too. Unlike many participating communities in Solarized Mass, Somerville has a really urban setting. We are the most densely populated community in New England, and most of our residents either rent or live in multifamily unit properties. Our residents face unique challenges and barriers to going solar. The issue that condos have been having with solar for years, but we're working with the city of Cambridge and the city of Boston to help change that too. It's very rare for an urban community to participate in a solarized program, and we're proud that we've done this well so far, and we've had 50 signups so far, and we're excited to get to 50 more.
For Somerville Neighborhood News, I'm Jenny Fan.
Now, the deadline to request a solar assessment is October 31st. Once you have signed up, you are locked in to receive the program's benefits and have until November 18th to sign a contract. For more information on the Solarized Somerville program or to schedule an assessment, visit www.somervillemA.gov/sustainavilla/solarize or just dial 311 and ask for the Sustainability Office. That's our newscast for tonight, folks. We'll be back on November 8th, election night at 7 p.m. on Channel 3. Check out all of our news stories at somervilleneighborhoodnews.org. Somerville Neighborhood News is a community service production of SCAT TV. We invite you to get involved. Visit our Facebook page at SCAT TV SNN to comment. Tweet us at SCAT TV SNN. Call us at 617-628-8826 or email us at scatvsomerville.org. I'm Melanie Morris. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you around the neighborhood.